All right, friends, we're going to make drawings on top of our watercolors that we did, and we're going to make colorful, abstract self-portraits. So I have 3 ready to go here, so let's get together. Let's get to work. I have my markers and my colored pencils and my crayons. You can use whatever you want. I think I'm going to use all of them. So I'm going to start with an outline of the face. I'm going to draw a line on the top and the bottom and one on each side just to give me markings so I can plan out my root for my big oval to make the shape of the face. I want to make it a lot like this portrait. It's got a lot of different colors and lines, and there are different markings all around, different kinds of lines all around. So I want to kind of mimic that as best I can with the markers, crayons, and colored pencils. I'm going to use a colored pencil to add some more layers of color into this. And I'm just going to go ahead and start adding some colorful layers in here and build on top of the watercolor background that we have and make it more and more interesting. I'm just going to scoot that other paper out of the way. I had all the papers stacked up, so I just want to be sure that I'm drawing on one piece of paper on the table. So I've got some blue down. I'm going to add some yellow in. These colored pencils, you can combine them and draw one on top of the other and kind of mix the colored pencil colors. They don't blend like oil pastels. They won't blend together, but they definitely will layer together and make interesting color combinations. So now we have to add the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. So I'm just making colorful shapes underneath where I think the eyes and the nose and the mouth will go. So after I fill in these spaces, it's kind of like a rough drawing in of where the eyes, nose, and mouth will go. Then I can just keep adding more and more details on top. And then eventually the eyes and nose and mouth will be on top of all of these layers of color. So I'm just going to shape the mouth out just a little bit. Just using red just because I'm going to shape the eyes a little bit. I'm trying to use white here with the colored pencil. It's giving me a little bit, you can see with the second eye there, you can see a little bit of the white. And I'm going to white in some of the mouth here just to give it some interest. Just to make it more interesting. Let's put let's layer some white color on there. Just again, make things more interesting. The more layers you have in abstract art, the more interesting it is. There's just a lot to look at. It makes it more interesting for the viewer because they just look and keep looking and keep looking, and they see more and more things the longer they look. I'm going to switch up to crayons now. I'm going to get some blues and greens out. Maybe a black one. Gotta find my broken black crayon. I'm going to use my black marker. So now I'm just adding some extra lines. I'm adding like an eyebrow kind of line and then an outline for the eyes. More color. The crayons don't seem to be working super well on top of the colored pencil, but I'm still going to try and work them in anyway. So I'm going to get this nose line going with the nostrils. I'm just going to add some extra lines and extra coloring in. That's the fun part with art, is you just never know where you're going to wind up. You just got to keep working at it and keep working at it and keep working at it. And eventually you wind up with something that you like. And a lot of times it's not even the first time that you try drawing something. Sometimes the first time you draw something, like right here, honestly, I got to this point and I didn't really like my drawing very much, but I knew that if I kept going and kept going and kept going, it would turn into something that I liked. So right here, I'm looking at it and thinking, I'm not sure I'm happy with this, but I'm just going to reference this drawing again and think, where am I trying to go? So all of these extra cool lines, like skinnier lines, drippy paint lines, all those extra lines, I just want to try and add them in somehow. So I only have crayons and colored pencils and markers, so I'm going to add some colored pencil lines and maybe add some interesting lines for hair or who knows what. Don't know. So I'm going to do some zigzag lines over here and some swoopy lines over there and just make multiple like interesting lines all over the place. Outline the mouth again. I'm going to underline the eyes, underline the mouth, underline the nose, just to make the eyes and nose and mouth pop a little bit. I'm still not happy with like all the extra lines, so I think I'm just going to keep going and add more and more and more lines. Now I'm just going to start to do colored lines. I thought to myself, if I made dotted lines, so when we talked about lines in our line lesson, we talked about dotted lines. So I'm going to add some dotted lines. I'm kind of going all over the place, but you'll start to see, there's my red dotted line. Do you see them? I have 3 red dotted lines, and I'm starting a 4th red dotted line. So I'm just adding interesting lines. I'm just going to keep pushing and see what happens. I'm starting to get happier with my artwork. There's all my lines. Lots of times you just have to keep going. Just keep going. There's a funny place in art when you get to before you're happy with it, and then there comes a place when you're happy with it, and then this takes practice to get here, it takes practice to get where you're perfectly happy with something. But sometimes you keep going and going, and then you go too far, and then you make too many lines and too many colors and too many anything, and then you cross into, oh man, I really don't like that now. So it's kind of like a sweet spot, like a perfect place, like the perfect finish line. So you just have to kind of keep going with your art, and eventually you learn to like make lines, make colors, stop, look at it, think to yourself, do I like it here or do I want to add something? And the better, the more and more practice you do with your art, the better you get at deciding, do I want to keep pushing this or do I want to keep adding? So I've been adding more and more. I add squiggly lines down below. I'm adding more detail to the eyes. I'm really kind of happy with how this is going right now. I'm going to outline the eyes a little bit more with marker now. I kind of like where this is going. I'm outlining the lips, adding some shadow underneath. I don't know why. Just felt like it. It's kind of interesting. Adding some more white, just because it's something you can see it faintly, but it's just there. It's enough that it will make you go, huh, there's white lines in there. Just something extra and interesting. Adding some more white back on the face, kind of like a highlight. I'm just kind of toning out that orange that I put on the cheek area a little bit, and I'm going to tone out those shadows that I put under the eyes. I'm going to like tame them down just a little bit with some white. I'm going to add some white to the nose as a highlight. I'm going to add some more color to the forehead. Going to add more lines in again for the hair, because those first lines that I put down got colored on a lot, so they kind of faded. So now I'm making my hairlines even darker and more aggressive, more scribbly, I'm pressing harder with that colored pencil to get a darker line, more vivid lines. And I'm going to color in ears. I kind of quickly just drew in some squiggles shapes for ears. And I kind of have a nice colorful face going on here. It's similar. Not the same, but it's similar. It's mine. Just going to keep going. Just going to push a little bit more and see if I get to a happier place. A little more blue. A little more yellow. I'm kind of bringing the color all the way to the edge of the paper just because I just want to color it in all and cover up that background of the white paper behind. And now I'm just going to I'm going to aggressively come at this with some black and just outline very important things that I want the viewer to focus on. So I'm going to outline the features of the face. I'm going to outline the chin. And I'm going to outline the hair like in a big, big way, like very, very dark, extra lines. Now I'm pressing really hard. And I'm getting the hair to kind of come down the side of the face. Just make extra lines. Drawing a little bit of kind of angled lines in there so it kind of looks like a neck or, you know, a head on shoulders like it belongs on something, just to bring some balance between the top and the bottom of the drawing. So I kind of think I'm done here. Is it the same as this other color drawing? No. But do I like it? Yeah, I'm happy. I did a colorful background with watercolor. I had lots of layers of color for the face and the eyes and the features. And, you know, it's not exactly like the one that I was using for inspiration, but that's okay because it's an abstract portrait and that's what it's supposed to be. And we were supposed to use colors and lines, that the two elements of art that we've been talking about so far. So I kind of think we did it. So here's another piece of colorful watercolor paper that we're going to use to do this again. We're going to do the eyes and the mouth and the nose again. It's going to be an abstract portrait again. So let's get started. I'm just going to jump right in with doing the eyes this time because I think I want to make them smaller and closer together. So now I'm adding some nostrils in. They're kind of big, but I don't care. I'm just going for it. Adding a big mouth again, but bigger, like an open mouth this time. So I'm just doing my outlining blue crayon just because, I don't know, it's what I had in my hand. And it's a contrast to the warm colors that are in the background. Remember, we talked about warm and cool colors. So I painted the background with warm colors, and I'm kind of using cool colors as my accents, my details, my tracing lines. It's just easier to see, it stands out, it's more interesting. So I'm heavily outlining the eyes on top, kind of like eyeliner, maybe. Filling in the eyes with some white, and I'm going to fill in the mouth with some white, just because I just want to make the insides of the eyes and the mouth pop a little bit. I'm just shading in the nostrils just for interest to make them look kind of like shapes rather than nostrils, but shapes that kind of represent a nose. Gonna draw some green on top, try and make green eyes. I think sometimes I just choose green for eyes because my eyes are green, so I like it. I'm gonna add some purple. Drawing these colored pencils on top of the other colored pencil lines is kind of hard. Like it doesn't take very well. You kind of have to press real hard and work those colored pencil colors into each other. I'm going to add some blue to the lip lines, just again for interest and contrast. So I'm going to add some zigzag kind of shapes, kind of like a lightning bolt that's like a bent around in a curve, just because I think it would be interesting. I'm going to add another lightning bolt shape over here. It's a very contrast to the rounded eyes and rounded lip shapes. I'm going to add some vertical lines. The original painting that I'm using for inspiration has paint drippy lines. So I'm just using the edge of my colored pencil and just kind of dragging it down and making some interesting lines. I know it doesn't look great right now, and you guys might think to yourself if you started doing it, see, there's the paint dripping line. So I'm just trying to mimic that just for something interesting. And there's like other interesting lines. So I'm just going to focus on getting interesting lines down on here. So adding these vertical lines, you guys, if you do it yourself, you might think you've ruined your picture right here and you might want to just throw it away and just start over again. But I just want to encourage you to don't throw things away just yet. I'm just using that sharp edge right there because these colored pencils have like a flat edge and a pointy edge on the side. So you can just use the pointy edge and make thin little lines and keep working through your artworks. Like don't get frustrated and don't throw things away too soon. Just keep working them, keep pushing, keep going. Keep coloring, keep outlining, keep filling in. Just keep going and going with your artwork. Don't throw things away. Don't erase. Just keep going. I'm going to add some red in here to the lips just because. I don't know. Don't have to make red lips. It's an abstract. You can make any color. You could make yellow. You could make green. Sometimes I just like to stick with regular colors though so you remember like you're looking at eyes and a mouth instead of just random shapes. I'm going to pull out some crayons here and add some more colors. I'm going to add more and more layers of colors onto this and more lines just to keep it going with the interest. Very much like the inspirational picture that we looked at. Adding some pink. Oh my gosh, the tip of my pink crayon broke off. So I'm just going to grab it and use it. Add some pink layers here. I'm going to add some more yellow layer. Crayon layers really well. When you color crayon on top of crayon, it layers really, really well. I'm going to add some red over here. So you can see that watercolor background doesn't stick out as much. It's still there, but it's not sticking out as much. I'm going to outline the nose here a little bit more. I'm going to add some more layers of color on here with the red. I'm just going to keep going and going. I'm going to switch to another color again. See, now that inside of the mouth that's white is really kind of sticking out now. I'm going to switch to markers just because I want some vivid, dark, sharp color in. So I'm going to color in this lightning bolt shape over here that I made. That's really, really standing out now. It's looking real thick. I'm going to add a little bit of extra lightning bolt shape right there. I'm going to switch to another color for this lightning bolt shape. I'm going to roughly outline it because I want it to have like energy and movement. So I'm going to use my zigzag lines and my scribbly lines. I want rough edge lines in here because I want the feeling of energy. So there we go. I've got some very energetic hair shapes with lightning bolt lines. I'm liking it. I think I'm going to color this in thicker over here. So I'm just still reminding myself of what I'm trying to use as inspiration. And I'm just going to look at my colorful portrait again and think, did I do it exactly as this one? No, I didn't. But did I do a very interesting abstract portrait? I sure did, because I have a portrait, which is eyes, nose, face. Eyes, nose, and mouth, which make up the face. So that's the interesting part of the portrait. But everything else, all the extra lines are just more interest. Like they're interesting colors, interesting shapes, interesting lines. And lines and colors are what we talked about, and that's what we're using today. Okay, last one. All right, last one. Again, we're doing an abstract self-portrait. I'm going to use all these colors still. I'm still sticking with what I had out. I'm just going to add some layers of color in. I'm going to do some eyes like the upside down half circles that we talked about in our lines lesson. I'm going to use a triangular shaped nose and a straight line for the middle of the mouth and do a bottom lip and a top lip around that straight line. Really trying to make this face a little bit different than the other one. I'm trying not to make it look angry, but I just want to use different shapes. We talked about a lot of different face shapes for the abstract self-portrait, for the line and the colorful one. So I'm just trying to use different shapes than I used on the other faces. It gives it a different look. This portrait is definitely starting to look a bit grumpy or angry, but let's see if I can work that and make it a little bit softer. I'm just adding color for interest, layers of color. I just want to keep adding layers and layers of color for interest. making it so that my viewer, whoever is looking at my artwork, has something to keep their eyes busy. I'm adding a big chunk of yellow down each side of the green that I just added in, and I'm just kind of drawing some big fields of color on top of the watercolor. The watercolor looks kind of faint in the camera because they turned a light on, but it's still pretty vivid. So some orange. I'm going to add a little bit more detail in the lines. I'm kind of outlining some of my sharp lines, trying to soften them up a little bit. I'll add a couple eyelashes, just a couple. Let's see what that looks like. Do I want to add more? I don't know. I think I'm just going to stick with those two lines. What if I do some circles on here? What will that look like? Just going to make these circles. I'm like making a big line of circles, and they're just going to wiggling across the paper. It's like giant polka dots wiggling across the paper. I don't know, I like it. It's something different. This is what you do with art. You just keep trying things until you find something that you really, really like. And then when you find something you like, you do it again and again. Just keep going and practicing it and pushing it and challenging it and seeing if you can get it to go in a place that you really, really like. So I kind of like that line of bubbles around. I'm going to add some white into the eyes to make them pop, kind of stand out. I kind of like that. I like that. They popped. I'm going to add some white to the lips here just as a highlight and just as an extra layer of color. I think the bubbles made an interesting contrast to the eyes because the eyes could look grumpy in that shape. And I still think they do look a little bit grumpy in that shape. But I'm adding some rounded edge lines as a contrast to those grumpy eyes because rounded edges often seem more happy and boisterous and jumpy. So I'm trying to do everything I can to add contrast to those straight, grumpy eyes. So I'm adding as many curvy, wiggly, happy, jumpy lines as I can, just to contrast out those eyes. And that's what art is. It's about making contrast and making it interesting. I kind of like this. What do you think? Do you like the jumpy, wiggly lines and the bubbles and the curves? I'm kind of happy with this is, so I'm just going to leave it like this. So there we have it, another one. It is the third and the last one that I'm going to make for this series. What do you guys want to make? What do you want to try? I want to see what you make at home. I want you to share your images in the portfolio, and I want to see if you tackled this in 1 or 2 or 3 different ways. I would like you to try it in a couple different ways at least. I don't want you to try it in just one way and say that's enough. I want you to try it in a couple different ways and see what happens. And I don't want you to go into it thinking, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to draw like, an oval face and an oval eyes and a triangle nose and, regular lips and keep doing that over and over again. I want you to try different shapes. I tried different shapes for the eyes and I liked how it came out. I tried a different shape for the mouth every time and I liked how it came out. I tried a different shape for the nose every time and I liked how it came out. So try different things. I want to see your colorful, abstract self-portraits in your portfolio. Show me what you got. Show me your best work. All right? Okay.